Thank you, Dave. Just do the technical bit first. That's right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I know a lot of people in the audience. One of them unkindly said I needed a box up here to stand on. Can everybody see and hear me? And I know who that person was, so I'm marking the cards. So my background, as David said, I'm an advanced paramedic in Dublin Fire Brigade, currently on secondment to PHECC to develop CFR training products to replace, in line with the new ILCOR guidelines 2015. So that project is going quite well. I'm going to touch on two topics, just the new ILCOR guidelines and how they impact on the new CPGs that will be issued along with the new training products, and just to tie them in with the training products as well. So I'm going to talk about two topics really. So we're going to talk first about what's new. CPGs for CFR haven't really changed in any way substantially since 2012, really since the last ILCOR guidelines. So currently, the new guidelines have been reviewed by the Medical Advisory Council as part of the Pre-Hospital Emergency Care Council, and they're going to Council this week to be approved. So they'll be ready pretty much as they'll be approved by the end of this week, and then they'll be ready to be launched with the new CFR training products, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. So that's really where the development is at. So what's new? I suppose the key things are that the standards are largely unchanged, as you've heard, and this is a message that you've heard several times today, that there's no headline changes, we haven't gone to 52 or anything dramatic like that. The big message is really about quality. A couple of other things that have been identified in the research that underpins ILCOR 2015 was the emphasis on emergency medical dispatch, on the vital role they play in recognising cardiac arrest and getting bystanders to do CPR. The reinforcement of local responder groups, which is, collectively why we're all here today, is that local response in the event of a cardiac arrest. Team-based CPR and the value that brings to managing cardiac arrest. Recognition of agonal breathing. Up to 40% of patients who go into cardiac arrest will have agonal breathing, which can delay CPR starting. So recognition of that both by the emergency medical dispatch team and responders is very important. Need for continuous training. The 2-year recertification period that we have with both CFR and the Irish Heart Foundation is similar, is suboptimal. You will lose your skills very, very quickly, and there's a recognition that within 3 to 6 months people's skills deteriorate. So we're taking that on board as part of this project, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. So minimal interruptions of compressions. We talk about compression fraction and trying to get that compression fraction figure up, which is critically important. The compression depth of 5 centimetres, but don't go too hard. Now, we won't be emphasising that in training as advised by the ILCOR guidelines, but the depth has remained the same, but not to push, not to go too mad with it. The compression rate stays at least 100 a minute, but not over 120. The evidence is saying over 120 you're going too quickly. So that all of this new stuff has kind of underpinned the development of the CPGs, and the CPGs will reflect that in one way or another. I'm not going to go into detail because it's very difficult to look at a diagram like this and pick out anything important, but just to say to you that the principles in terms of the new CPGs are that the flow, in terms of keeping them as uncluttered as possible, making them as clear as possible, is central to all of them. Some feedback on the previous ones in terms of the call for help, that's been streamlined and made much more straightforward. Simplified call for help. The recognition of the call taker role, so you're going to interact with an ambulance call taker and the role that they play in it, which has now been recognised in the CPGs. And they'll all be referenced back to the ILCOR guidelines. So it's really just to say that rather than going into detail on the CPGs and what the changes are, and that it's just to say to you that they're underpinned by the science, they're underpinned by ILCOR guidelines 2015. So I suppose the main things are no major headline changes, ratios remain the same, rates are largely unchanged except for that upper limit of 120, and the focus really is on quality. And I think that's a message that I've heard today repeated again and again. So it's not about the numbers of compressions as such, it's not about any changes in ratio, it's really about quality. And where this is leading in my talk is that hopefully in the new CFR training products that we'll be able to support that we'll get that message out there in the final products. So really, what is it about quality? Get bystanders to do something, even if untrained, through citizen CPR programs, for example, public advertising campaigns. The value of the dispatcher, particularly in recognition of agonal breaths and telephone CPR. The quality of compressions and improving compression fraction, the amount of times the compressions are being done, and full chest release, so allowing the chest to recoil. Leadership, a key role, and we talked about team resuscitation, and one of the new clinical practice guidelines from PHECC will be a team resuscitation clinical practice guideline to give you a very clear picture. And I refer to that because I joined the Order of Malta 34 years ago. Hard to believe. You're all thinking I must have been 4 when I joined. And I joined the Eastern Health Board Ambulance Service 20 years ago. And the one big thing that has changed in my time has actually been we're now all doing the same thing. We're all talking the same language and we're all doing the same thing. And I would hope that as responder groups you see that when the ambulance service arrive or you're interacting with any other groups, that everybody is kind of on the same page and talking the same language. And leadership is a really important part of that, somebody taking the lead and making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And of course, recognition that ongoing training is required. And with the new products, we're going to tip our hat to that in some way to try and support ongoing training, particularly for groups like yourselves. So just what's the emphasis on? I just took a still from last year's Respond conference, the clip of the ALS scenario, and I thought it was an excellent example of where we're going, which is the compression fraction was over 85% in that video. There was leadership and there was teamwork. They ticked all 3 boxes, and that's really where we want to try and go, both with the underpinning CPGs but also with the CFR training products to try and support you in that and improve those issues. So just to talk about the training products and where the project is at, as I say, I'm seconded as project lead. Why are we doing it? Well, we have new ILCOR guidelines 2015, as you know, and that underpins the need for change. We need to develop teaching products for an Irish context, and the training products will meet the objectives of the CFR standard. So the CFR education and training standard, whatever is in that will be contained within the training product. So you know that if you deliver that package, that you're delivering the course in its entirety. And it streamlines the teaching of CFR, and I refer back to what I said a couple of minutes ago. We're now all doing the same thing, both operationally when we deal with cardiac arrests, but also in the teaching end of things, we're all doing the same thing and teaching the same thing. So what's involved in the project? We have to plan and script the entire video content. We're looking at 2 DVDs this time round, CFR Responder and CFR Advanced videos. We have to contract a video production company, which has been done. We have to edit the training manuals and update them and contract a publishing company to print them. And we've established a focus group to give input and guidance throughout the process. And I'm very keen that it's a collaborative approach and we reflect everybody who's involved in the pre-hospital emergency care area, and that includes responder groups. So we've representatives, and Des Kelly from the National Ambulance Service, and you'll all be familiar with Des as CFR officer, and a couple of other people who are actually involved in responder groups like Andy and people like that are on the focus group. So your voice hopefully is going to come out very, very clearly in the training products. So it started on the 4th of January. That's when the project started. We reviewed the ILCOR guidelines initially, reviewed the new CPGs, which, as I say, will be approved by Council this week, hopefully. We appointed a film production company, and filming starts in 2 weeks' time. And also developing separate training manuals. Again, some of the feedback where people felt that there should be a responder and an advanced manual, and we've taken that on board, and that's the plan. And developing educational posters and flyers. A couple of other things we plan to do to support, particularly the likes of voluntary groups and CFR responder groups, is to have a more flexible menu that you'll be able to go in and select some ongoing training, and you'll be able to look at the team resuscitation on its own and look at some maybe scenario type thing that you go down every 3 months. You'll play the video, and it will support what you're doing rather than having to go through the whole video and pick out what you want. That we will actually have specific parts of it for groups who need to do ongoing training. So just to mention that. The key thing is that the products will meet the CFR education standard in its entirety. It's underpinned by the CPGs, which are approved or will be approved. Hopefully it's a collaborative approach that nearly everybody who has a voice in the pre-hospital emergency care continuum will have an input into it. We're also looking at alternative formats to DVD. It's recognised by PHECC that DVDs really are almost a thing of the past, and a lot of computers being sold nowadays don't even have a DVD player. So we're looking at options in terms of secure things like secure USBs and streaming as alternatives to groups wanting to use the CFR training products. It's going to be hopefully an ongoing training resource as well as just a standalone course to teach CFR. That will be an ongoing training resource for refresher training, which hopefully will have benefit to groups like responder groups around the country. So the one thing I want to say to you is that I'm very open to hearing people's opinions on what they want from training products. You can contact me, ray@phec.ie, and very interested to hear any comments, and I'll do my best to try and incorporate any suggestions you have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray. Just because the talks tonight or this afternoon are all slightly different, I think we might take questions after each one. So if anybody has any questions for Ray about the CPG training products, now is your chance. It's all perfectly clear, so you don't. Perfect. Okay. Oh.
Fred is unavailable. So just a question here about using relaxers. The plan is that any acting pieces like scenarios will be done by professional actors. We're contracting them in as part of the process. But the CPR demonstrations will be done by people who are experts in that area. So people who are involved in training in recognised institutions will be doing the actual skills that are demonstrated. And then, where the acting pieces will have actors done that.
All right. One more down the back.
Will CFR instructors get them automatically, or get them? Will CFR instructors get the updates automatically, or will we have to apply for them?
Okay, so there's two parts. I suppose maybe this is answered in two parts. There'll be an online CFR instructor update, is the first thing. In terms of the actual product, is that what you mean? Yeah. There's a debate, I suppose, and it's a conversation I have to have with the Director of PHECC, I suppose, in terms of how we market them when they're ready. What happened in the last product was an instructor pack, and there were favourable rates for recognised institutions. So I actually can't give you a straight answer now whether we go with that model or we look at an alternative. Any suggestions? Free. You want them? Do you want them free? One for everyone in the audience, no problem. Just to say to you as well, the target is somewhere towards the end of April to have something ready to actually manufacture into a DVD or alternative product. That's the current target. I'm probably committing myself there, but that's the target. All right. So hopefully somewhere in early May you'll start to hear about it anyway. All right. But I'm keeping an open mind on how we get it out to instructors, and I'm open to suggestions if you want to email me.
One more.
Are you going to increase the time in terms of how more frequent that you need to recertify? Will it be 2 years, or will it be sooner that both provider and instructor have to recertify?
My understanding is that the 2-year recertification period is remaining, and I haven't heard any discussions or conversations about a shorter time. I think what we will be trying to do is get the message out there that you need ongoing refresher training, really. And we're going to try and support that with the products.
Okay.